Hey y'all, and welcome back to the talk. As usual, you know what I want y'all to do. Go ahead and like this video, comment below, and of course, subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much. Also, if y'all could pretty please follow me on Instagram at _Amberina, and also follow me on TikTok and YouTube at almost PhD Ambi. Last week, we had a very special guest on my show, and I thank y'all so much for tuning in. Of course, it was the lovely and wonderful Jay. He was so litty. And we spoke about identity within friendships. And that's something that is just really so important. And I feel like it's something that is really often overlooked as well. Today, we're going to be talking about what identity looks like within intimate relationships. It's still this idea of looking at a relationship, but it's something that's more intimate. And when I say intimate, I mean, it can be a boyfriend or a girlfriend, it can be a husband or a wife, it can be a domestic partner, it can be like more so of a sexual relationship, polyamorous relationships or polygamous relationships, all kinds of intimate forms of relationships that people may be out there and, into. Or into and out there. You know which one I mean. I remember, like, literally when they first came out, I was so pressed and obsessed with becoming like a city girl. What a nigga. It was just like so cool to like just want someone like for money and just like being with them, all of that. But it's so interesting how the world changes, and now it just seems like these sassy men be more pressed to be city boys. I mean, honestly, the universe knew I was going to end up alone anyway forever, because people are out here dating these days for money, for sex, for drugs, alcohol. And it's just like, I love people too much. Like, I really want genuine connections and relationships with people like how they did way back when. That doesn't really exist anymore. So I was never meant to be a city girl. It was never even in my blood. I didn't stand a chance. And so really the first thing is, y'all, I want you to please establish boundaries from early on within any relationship, really, but especially within intimate relationships. It is just something that is so important, and I'm going to obviously get into why. Not only does it allow for individuality, it also allows you to protect your personal identity, and it ceases from love turning into absorption. You all just basically turning like it's enmeshment, and all of a sudden you all are just one. Like, no. No couple should ever be saying we are one. Absolutely not. Please make sure that you are establishing boundaries and also just being clear from the beginning about what it is that you want, what you need, what it is that you will and won't tolerate. A lot of people aren't clear in communicating those things, but then they have certain expectations moving forward, and they're confused about why their partner may not understand that. And it's just like, how, Sway? When you were never clear about these boundaries to even begin with. Just really make sure that you are establishing those. And then also, not ever feeling like you have to go into any kind of relationship feeling coerced to do anything. More so feeling coerced to kind of like fit in, to kind of adapt, to survive, to connect, and especially the survive piece. That piece is crucial. Y'all, I have worked with intimate partner violence cases, women, etc. You should never feel like you are being forced to do something or act a certain type of way or wear certain clothing or whatever the thing may be. You should never be forced to do anything as a man or a woman in order to be with your partner. That should never be happening. Please, please, please make sure that you are being clear about these boundaries. Make sure that you are also being an advocate for yourself. Please stand up for yourself, y'all. Be kind to yourself. Not establishing boundaries, it can typically end up turning into, not saying that if you don't do it, it's going to end up happening this way, but more so the coercion piece. It can typically end up turning into some form of emotional and or mental abuse. In the more extreme cases, physical abuse. And no one should have to go through that. Make sure that you're doing what you can to even, prevent that. And so our relationships can also really end up shaping how we see ourselves within the world and also how we even end up connecting with other people, which is really our identity. And that ends up being very similar to attachment styles. So Bowlby and Ainsworth, they end up saying within the attachment style theory that basically these attachment styles not only end up predicting love, but they can also predict our identities. Really, the theory ends up saying that a more avoidant attachment style might end up being like just this really independent person. And then more anxious attachment styles, they may yearn for that closeness and they may want to be more so kind of up under a person more frequently. And this can also even end up speaking to us searching for partners that are similar to us. We might look for individuals who have a lot of common traits. They might have similar interests to us, goals, maybe even some similar pasts to our past. It can end up being like a match made in heaven because, oh my gosh, you understand me so well. Or it can end up being a disaster because literally it's like you remind me of someone that I used to be with. I end up choosing the same person all the time. This is why things don't work out, things like that. But a lot of the times, people are not able to even recognize that. And speaking of which, there is something I really want to highlight here: trauma bonding. I know certain people have spoken about gaining this closeness over trauma bonding, alluding to the past piece. And if you and I have had similar pasts to each other, like for instance, we may have both experienced violence in the community or maybe violence in the home, similar things within our past relationships, things like that. It could be beneficial to a certain extent. You understand some of the things that I've gone through. I don't have to necessarily explain myself to you with every single thing. I can just talk to you about these things. I feel comfortable talking to you about these things, but it can also be very detrimental. When we think of trauma bonding in particularly intimate relationships, because we are talking about this specifically, but it can also be within any relationship. If that is the only thing that you all have in common or your only similarity, or if the thing that you all are bonding over is specifically a traumatic event that was relation-based or relational, and that happened in their past relationship, and then it also happened in your past relationship, okay, that's maybe something that you want to assess there, because what are the odds and chances of it happening again? Best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Okay. Has this person worked on healing? Like, is there still some unresolved negative affect that is going on here? Are they willing to work on healing independently and or as a couple, what does that maybe look like? And this can end up being very detrimental to the individuals, to the relationship, etc. So just be very careful about not only trauma bonding, but how many things you want to have in common with your partner, as well as what particular things you find yourself having in common. Of course, it is so marvelous to be like, oh my gosh, I relate to you on so many levels. But if I'm talking to you and I feel like I'm talking to myself, like you've literally gone through everything I've gone through and it's like a clone, then we maybe want to reassess. I don't want to date myself. I want you to be an extension of me that is able to help me grow and see new things, not necessarily just me kind of reliving the same life that I'm already going through. So just, some food for thought there. Going back to that part of seeking out partners that share different commonalities with us, and that's typically what we would end up going for. It is something that is common and completely normal, and I do encourage, I want to be very clear about that, and it is something that we end up doing because we want to try and add substance and validation to our lives and our relationships, right? And when we end up doing this, this can be seen as the mirror effect. With this, it's a concept where basically we are searching for partners who can serve as our psychological mirrors in a sense. They end up being able to see certain or reflect things in ourselves that we may not always be able to see. At the same time, they can reassure us and validate us. And that's why we typically like going for people who are a bit more like us or like-minded. When you look in a regular mirror, today I looked in the mirror, I was like, okay, like I like the little curl, I got going on. The fit is fitting, as always. I mean, that's gonna be that. But the body, y'all, the body is not tea. I mean, every time I am working hard, I'm grinding, I'm back in school and work and all the things. This is not Jamaica me. Jamaica me was Big Mama. This is not her, and I'm not happy. I need to hire a personal chef, so I need you to go ahead and comment below. Let me know what's up, because I need it. That's something that a mirror is going to be able to tell you. The mirror is not going to lie to you. It's going to show you what it's going to show you. And it's a very similar concept with a psychological mirror, or the mirror effect, so to speak, within our partners. And the ways that it's similar is like, sometimes when we look in the mirror, thinking also like this parallel to this psychological mirror, we get the feedback that we want, or we're satisfied with the feedback that we're getting. We handle conflict well. And it's like, okay, yeah, you know what, that's what I wanted to hear. Yeah, like I thought that too. Okay, cool. And then other times we're not getting the kind of feedback or results that we wanted, where our partner is sharing like, but you know what, you don't know how to receive care. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not true. There can end up being that misalignment. The only time that we will find ourselves getting very defensive about specific feedback, two main reasons. Number one, either because we're passionate about the particular thing that we're getting feedback on, and or because it's true and we don't want to admit it, but it's true. So when we may receive this feedback, whatever it is, from our partners, then we may end up engaging in what Gottman calls four horsemen. And so really quick, because y'all already know, I'm gonna be out here, I'm serving y'all like I'm serving the community. Like, it's what I do, it's what I do. I'm so good at it, I know. John and Julie Gottman, they are a married couple. They are also, actually, John was originally a mathematician, but doctors John and Julie Gottman, they are two very well-renowned couples experts or relationship experts. And you all can, of course, look up their work. They basically have done a lot of experiments on just married couples, really relationships in general, what predicts them staying together, what predicts divorce, things of that sort, communication patterns, etc., etc. With Gottman's Four Horsemen, they are basically destructive communication patterns that would ultimately result in failure of the relationship. There is criticism where your partner is constantly attacking you. It's always just everything about you do this, you are lazy. It's always a you. There is also contempt, which is basically when a partner is showing their superiority, but through very like mean and demeaning gestures, mimicking, eye rolling, and it's just kind of like, oh my gosh, like you're so dumb, like you're stupid, things like that. Then there's also defensiveness, which can end up actually being like a lot of victim or playing the victim rather. I mean, it's exactly how it sounds, where the partner is just acting like they're the victim. Everything is happening to them. Oh my gosh, how could you do this to me? Why are you doing this to me? And there's a lack of accountability. And then the last one is stonewalling. And that's pretty much when a partner is shutting down. Well, might get into an argument and literally they're just done. They're not even giving you an emotional response back. They're just completely over it. Either walking away, they're no longer talking, things of that sort. And there are ways to counteract these destructive communication patterns. With criticism, instead of always saying, you could start to use I statements. I felt like I wasn't being heard in this conversation. I just really wanted to talk to you. Could you hear me out regarding X, Y, and Z? As opposed to kind of just, going straight forward into attacking your partner. With the contempt piece, definitely that can, a lot of different things can be said about that, right? Especially culturally, going into like the marginalized populations, things of that sort, but I won't go too deep into that for this episode. Doing more small gestures more often, really just like saying thank you for even small things, doing little things throughout the day, how you appreciate your partner, showing how you appreciate your partner, things of that sort. As far as defensiveness, being able to take accountability for your actions, not always playing like this victim role. At the end of the day, we are adults, so really being able to see where it is that you may be wrong in certain situations. And then with stonewalling, really being able to self-soothe or engage in certain relaxation techniques before and during an argument or a disagreement or whatever it might be. So, this can look very differently for a lot of different people, but if that needs to be kind of taking a break for 15 to 20 minutes, or if you need to engage in another activity and really just putting the pause on that to ensure that it does not reach a point of escalation where either someone is going to say something that they don't really mean to say, someone is going to end up partaking in a certain behavior where things can go very left. So really just, being mindful of those counteracting techniques also. All right, and so for so many episodes, and y'all stuck in there with me, y'all really did, but we spoke about children, and I told y'all we was moving on from that, and we was getting grown. So we are going to finally dive into some sex psychology, y'all. And I do know some actual like certified sex psychologists in my life. It's not really an area in this field that I have like really dove into personally. So this is going to be a journey that y'all are taking with me. It's always something that has really just intrigued me. And yeah, it's something that, we're going to kind of just dip our, toes into the water. Really similarly to how we spoke about attachment styles previously, attachment styles also end up having a lot to do with our intimate and emotional connections with our partners as well. And it ends up determining or dictating how safe we feel as far as our connections with other people on a physical level and an intimate level. And so it's seen as individuals who might have this kind of like more avoidant kind of attachment style, they may end up being more distant, or they may want their partner to be a bit more distant physically, and they actually might look for more control when it comes to intimate and physical settings. Whereas people with more anxious attachment styles, they might actually look to intimate settings and physical settings for reassurance and actually sometimes for self-worth. When you are thinking about your sexual interactions and that intimacy piece, what is it that you are actually seeking? Are you seeking validation? Are you looking for closeness? Are you looking for just pure pleasure? Are you looking for reassurance? What is it that you find yourself really wanting out of those situations? And whatever your answer might end up being, of course, there's no right or wrong answer, but all of that really speaks particularly to your emotional blueprint. Also, another idea is who and what we desire. That can also end up speaking to our identity as well. And when I say who and what we desire, I am speaking sexually because, right now we're talking about sex psychology. I always think of the cliche, it always be those quiet ones that be having the glasses, the church mouths. People will always say that about certain girls and how they end up being so wild sexually. And I hate to fall into the stereotype, but I mean, there is some science to back up that hypothesis.
A word?
And when you really think about it and when you look into it, there is a concept of basically self-expansion theory and also just looking into erotic identity as well. Whereas for different females that may be a bit more quiet or shy or, demure, as everyone loves to say, or they may be a bit more restricted socially or in different social settings, they may actually seek out partners and people that they want to be with sexually who can offer them more of that freedom, more confidence, more power, etc., and dominance. Or they even may experiment with engaging in some of those characteristics or identity traits themselves when it comes to those sexual situations. And so really just thinking of that as like opposites attract, right? So that can be like another way to think of it. And so really the most important part when it comes to just intimacy and in relationships, thinking back to even just the professional and the academic piece that I spoke about on my other episode as far as identity is concerned, are you showing up as your most authentic self when it comes to the intimate setting, or do you feel like you have to code switch? With this, it's seen as differentiation when you're able to actually show up as your authentic self within an intimate setting. And that is something that you definitely want to push for, especially when it comes to intimacy. And it's the idea that you are able to maintain your individuality while also still being able to maintain that closeness with your partner, or for my poly people, with multiple partners, but still you are not compromising your identity and who it is that you are as an individual to enmesh yourself into the relationship or into the physical act of sex either. And so just for my key takeaways, please like establish those boundaries, like literally immediately, like number one thing. And make sure that you maintain them. Like, don't just get rid of them as soon as you establish them. Of course, we all want to find partners that we feel like we have things in common with, but also making sure that we are not just getting with people based on the wrong things. We want to make sure that we're not just, getting with people based off of trauma bonding, or like, oh my gosh, you experienced violence in the home just like I did when I was 6. Like, yeah, no, that's not what we're going to do. So let's try and find people with common things like that are positive. Awesome. Also, it can be very normal to want to, see your partner as some kind of psychological mirror. But again, when they are sharing certain things with you that you may not want to hear, being able to make sure that you are fighting fair. Let's fight fair, y'all. Like, again, going into Gottman's Four Horsemen, not being super destructive, and also having those counteracting techniques to those destructive communication patterns. With the, sex psychology piece, I know like we just check the temperature on that. We got to let it cook for real. There's just so much really to explore with that. And really just the main piece is knowing who it is that you are and making sure that you have love for yourself before, of course, you just even engage in such serious act like that with, of course, anyone, but definitely with someone who is your partner. And so thank you all so much as always. I love you and see you next time.
My man, my baby, my baby.